Nestled in the remote and rugged landscapes of the last frontier, Alaska's vast wilderness is not only home to breathtaking natural beauty, but also to spine-tingling legends and eerie encounters with creatures that defy explanation. From the towering Sasquatch lurking in dense forests to the elusive sea serpents prowling its icy waters, we're going to explore the most fascinating and frightening cryptid tales this wild land has to offer. So bundle up and join us as we venture into the unknown, unraveling the secrets of Alaska's most elusive inhabitants. Hello everyone, and welcome to Wicked Encounters, where we explore just what goes bump in the night. I'm your host, Allie, and today, with the temperatures rising, it can only mean one thing. My dreaded enemy, the sun, has decided that it's the summer season. So, to fight my intense hatred for everything hot, sweaty, and sticky that comes with summer, I've decided to take a trip to the Great North. Not Canada, but Alaska.
Northbound to Alaska.
I checked the temperature over in Anchorage right now, and it is a beautiful 58 degrees by the time of this recording, which is 100% better than the disgusting 84 degrees in Pennsylvania. So I'm going to disassociate for a little bit by pretending I'm over there with today's video. We're exploring the top 10 cryptids from Alaska. Let's get started, shall we? Our first cryptid is the Iliamna Lake monster, also known as Ili to the locals, or Gonakode in Tlingit. There's going to be a lot of pronunciation errors on my end in this video, but just know I did look them up and I am trying my best. I don't understand why people have so many different pronunciations on this, so yeah, just keep that in mind, please. Thank you. An aquatic cryptid, Ili is known as Alaska's own Loch Ness monster, reported to dwell in Iliamna Lake. The beast is said to be between 25 to 60 feet in length, with shark-like features and a square head that it uses to cause blunt force damage to prey, boats, and anything it may run into. So great for mosh pits. Iliamna Lake is a large natural lake, but has been described as an inland sea. Over 77 miles at its longest point, and a width of 22 miles, Iliamna Lake is the largest lake in Alaska, and one of the largest in the country. With an average depth of 144 feet, but 988 feet at its deepest point, it's little wonder that tales of a sea beast have floated along the lake for centuries. The earliest reports of Ili come from the native Tlingit people who told tales of the Gonakade, a large aquatic animal with the head and tail of a wolf and the body of an orca. Now to be clear, while that sounds very similar to the adlet, it's very different. The adlet was a man who had a hard-on for the ocean and anger management problems. The Gonakade was depicted as a fish god to the Tlingit. The Tlingit were not the only natives in the area who told tales of the beast. The adlet have their own stories of a creature called the Jigignak, fish-like monsters that would travel in packs to attack canoes and kill their warriors. Before long, tales of a monster lurking in the lake caught the attention of the southern states. It's very difficult to reach Iliamna Lake, with the most common and practical way to get to it being float planes that can land directly on the water. With their invention, more people came to explore the lake for themselves. Fishermen, pilots, monster hunters, and oddballs from all over came to see if they could catch a glimpse of a sea monster. Lake monster, I suppose. With each flyby came a consistent mentioning of a large, dull, aluminum-colored fish. These sightings were so common that in 1979, the Anchorage Daily News offered $100,000 to anyone who could prove that Ili existed. Though despite the many sightings in the 1950s through the 1970s, the sightings have died down, and no one has yet to claim the reward for providing definitive proof that the cryptid exists. One of the more recent sightings came in 2017, where it was said the massive fish might be a type of whale. So who knows? Maybe tomorrow we'll hear word of a new species of fish being discovered in the cold Alaskan water. In such a vast, hard-to-explore location, anything is possible after all. If you've been on the spooky side of TikTok, then you've definitely seen the viral AI video discussing urban and how we are the reason you should not come to Alaska. But what are the ursen really? The ursen, known as the Little People of Alaska, are a race of small humans with exceptional powers from Yupik lore. Ursen seem to live in another dimension of their own, capable of blipping in and out of our own reality at will. While some say that the Ursen bring good luck, most say they are mischievous little ghoulies who will kidnap those lost in the woods, or lure them away so they can be dragged off to their underground lairs. When they aren't looking to ruin someone's, life, they can be found hunting, fishing, gathering supplies, and acting very similar as humans would, with a reputation of being excellent craftsmen. For those who have been able to make it to the Ursen dimension, they say that a day in their world is like a year in ours. In an article published by the Anchorage Daily News, a man told the story of how he had once found a little boy in the woods crying for his parents. The man brought the boy with him to get food and shelter, but noticed there were no footprints that were around the boy. It was as if he had just appeared from thin air. Once given food, water, shelter, and some time to calm down, the boy told his tale of how he had been in the woods when he ran into the little people. While with them, he met a little girl who was also lost. But more than that, she claimed that she had been lost for 40 years, roaming in the lands of the Ursen. A better fate than what most would have encountered. For those who have angered the Ursen or disrespected their land, they'll be drawn deeper into the bush until they are ambushed by the little people, who will tie them up into the trees and throw rocks at them, poke them with sticks and spears, and mock them before they leave them to their fate in the Alaskan wilds. Listen for their singing while they work, and run the other way. It's the only real way to be safe from the Ursen. Every parent has their way of making their children be careful and listen. For the Inuit, their method was the palic. The palic are kind of like mermaids in that they're aquatic humanoids. But unlike the beautiful, mythical, clamshell bra-wearing mermaids you might be thinking of, the palic are hideous, possessing webbed hands with sharp claws meant for hunting, with scaly, bumpy skin and fins that come out of their heads, back, and torso. The palic hunt children who have wandered off and carry with them an amook. An amook is commonly worn by Inuit women to secure their babies to their backs, and the palic carry one so that they can easily snatch and scurry off with these small children. Fortunately, they have an absolutely horrendous stench to them, like rotten eggs, which can help children avoid them. Though being so close to one that you can smell it is asking for trouble. Palic are known to hum sweetly, a warning to those who know of them to steer clear of their hunting grounds. While they're commonly found near the shore, they have been known to knock under the ice to draw children to a weak part, or to a hole for them to reach up and grab them with their tap, tap, tap. But why do the palic want the children? Well, some believe they eat them, similar to a hag. But other legends say that the palic steal them away to a cave, where they put them in an enchanted sleep or stasis-like state, so that their innocent energy can be used to keep the palic immortal. A good way to best a palic is to have them change their shape. The nasty hags are said to be invulnerable in their normal state, but when they change their form, they're at least for a moment vulnerable, allowing some crafty hunter to have a good haul. That being said, best to keep children away from deadly icy waters, no? What kind of list would this be if it didn't include a Bigfoot? There are many versions of Bigfoot: Sasquatch, Yetis, skunk apes, and, well, Alaska has the tornet. The tornet are said to be roughly 10 feet tall with long legs and arms, but very poor eyesight compared to humans. Described as being incredibly strong, they were able to toss large boulders with ease. Tales of the tornets, or as they are also known as the Alaska Bushmen, have been told since the first humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge. Inuit tales speak of a time when the Inuit and the tornet lived in separate tribes but shared common hunting grounds. The two groups got along fairly well, interacting regularly in high spirits. The one major fault was that while the Inuit and the tornet got along, the tornet were notorious for stealing the Inuits' kayaks. Having never mastered the building of kayaks, tornets were still very well aware of the advantages of having them, and would often borrow those that the Inuit made. Knowing how much stronger the tornet were, the Inuit wouldn't really be able to retaliate, but they would often grumble and feel slighted by the actions. Stories say of how one day a young tornet borrowed a young Inuit's kayak without permission, and ran it into some blocks of floating ice, damaging the bottom of the kayak. The young Inuit was furious, seething with rage, and once night had fallen and the tornet that stole his kayak was asleep, the young Inuit snuck into the tent and stabbed the tornet in his neck, killing him. The other tornet feared that they would be next and fled into the country, rarely having been seen since. Since then, tales would pop up of hunters disappearing in the bush never to be seen again, or later being found dead, their bodies mangled in unusual ways. The tornet may still share hunting grounds, but they are no longer on good terms. Occasionally, deep in the woods of Alaska, you may find tall trees uprooted from the ground and placed upside down. Be careful when you do, as you may have gotten too close to a tornet hunting ground. Few creatures are as bizarre as the amook from Yupik myth.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
They're described as shapeshifters capable of swimming through water or the earth. In their normal state, amook are said to have leathery, slimy skin with no legs, but 4 long human-like arms that they can stretch wide. Some say they're able to be invisible. While masks of amook are usually seen with a ring of feathers, they're never described as having manes, frills, or feathers in all of the oral or written depictions of them. One thing that is very well documented about them, however, is their love of violence.
Mother, I crave violence.
Typically living in the waters, amook are known to prey on hunters in their kayaks, stretching their arms out to wrap around the kayak and drag it and the hunters underwater to be devoured. The water isn't the only place one could be in danger of falling victim to an amook. After all, they can swim through the earth as well, and not by digging, as they leave no hole as they travel. It's almost as if they phase through the ground, and are able to turn the earth around their prey into quicksand by swimming quickly around them. As they travel through the earth, they're known to make a thumping sound, a heart-pounding moment, as amook can leap through people as easily as they can swim through water and earth. While this act won't leave a mark on their victim, it will kill them instantly. Amook aren't just beings of instant misfortune, or death. At times, they take the form of a human and will pull sleds across the ice, though they can only do so in a straight line for some reason. The creatures are known to make small nests, which they guard much like a bird will, probably explaining the feathers looped around in their masks. If someone was to look into the nest, there wouldn't be any eggs, but anything broken or scraps of cloth placed inside of it would be whole again after one day, allowing the nest to regenerate tools and clothes while providing endless amounts of furs and pelts. Personally, I think I'll stick with trying to find a golden goose, than the small nest of a shapeshifter that could kill me just 'cause it felt like it. Though another way to get riches from the amook is if you run into one in human form. Sit down with your back to them and don't speak. Amook are said to offer gifts of increasing value, and legend says that you should remain silent until the amook has offered you everything you need, or everything that's on your mind. Oh, it's werewolf time! Inuit legends tell of a race of tall people said to have the lower body of a dog and the upper body of a human, known as the adlet. The adlet are said to be bloodthirsty creatures, believed to be the offspring of an Inuit woman and a dog by... they say unnatural matings, but let's call it for what it is, bestiality. She fucked a dog. From this tomfuckery, the woman gave birth to a litter of 10 children, half of whom were dogs and half who were adlet. The family lived on a remote island, where the grandfather would hunt and provide them with food. In return, every day the dog husband of the woman was said to swim from the island to the mainland, where the grandfather would fill a pair of boots wrapped around the dog's neck with meat. One day, the grandfather did not put meat in the boots, but instead filled them with rocks, causing the dog to drown. In revenge, the woman set her dog children to gnaw off the hands and feet of her father, who in return cut off her fingers, and that's apparently how we have whales and dolphins now. The woman, worried that her father would kill the adlets, set them inland, while the dogs she sent across the ocean. Interestingly, this tale is shared by Scandinavians, who say that the dogs were their ancestors, and the tale is often known as the girl and the dogs in Greenland. There's an anthropological interpretation of the tale basically explaining how Nords would provide goods to Inuits in return for sex.
You one of those Skyrim for the Nords types?
And it's a very in-depth, book-heavy explanation that goes too far away from my love of werewolves for me to get into. But if you're interested, just look up the anthropological significance of the girl and the dogs in Greenland to learn more. I'm not a people person. I'm a paranormal person. Now, for the adlets, the ones who stayed with their mother, they became ferocious, flesh-eating beasts who would attack anyone or anything they encountered, their numbers growing as the years went on, and now they wander the tundra, seeking out hunters to feast upon. At the birth of creation, when the first Inuits walked across the earth, so did terrifying monsters. A friend to man, the raven came to them and warned them of the monstrous tesar, who dwelled in the swamps, lakes, and rivers from Kuskokwim to the Yukon. Massive creatures with horns that curl forward and back with beady eyes. The tesar lurks waiting in water for an animal or man to wander too close. The creature is feared by the local Inuit people not for how large it is, but by its ability to snatch people off of piers without being noticed. The tesar is one of those beasties whose name and discussion you won't find being a common topic. It's kind of treated like Voldemort or Wendigos or Skinwalkers, where even saying its name can cause death or misfortune to those who do so. Joke's on them, I work at a screen printing company. My life is already one big misfortune. The tesar is said to be able to change its size or shape. It can even become invisible. Similar to the amook, but it's still a very different creature, with many islanders and Coast Guard personnel believing the creature to be real. At times, it's described almost like an oversized seal, but unlike them, it never ventures outside of the water, where it remains lithe and agile. Much like a seal when you think about it, they're so funny and fat-looking on land. Others say it is closer in resemblance to a crocodile. In my opinion, the tesar's tendency to yoink people from piers comes from the fact that Alaska is cold, and when you have cold and water mixed together, you get ice, and ice is very slippery. I don't blame them, though. If I was viewed as a badass hunter or fisherman, I wouldn't want to admit that I slipped and fell to my death on the pier either. Though it's also been said that the last one was killed by a hunter in vengeance for the beast killing his wife. So take that, ancient Aboriginal horrors! If you've listened to my shorts, you may have heard of this one before. In Alaska, there is a legend involving cats. And not the small fuzzy overlords we feed and take into our homes, but the abominations created from the union between a man and a bear. If you haven't been able to tell yet, many cryptids, mutants, freaks, and the like seem to have their origins from bestiality. I'm sure there's a book, essay, and research all about the topic and how it shaped mankind's history and folklore, but I'll leave my stance here. Bestiality bad. Now that my controversial take is done, the legend of the creatures known as cats come from the Tlingit people of a story involving bears running off with men and women who then marry them. The name Cats comes from a man named Cats from Sitka. Cats was a talented hunter, the best in his village, and one day while hunting deep in the forests near Ketchikan, he came across a she-bear. Seeing Cats, the fierce grizzly revealed that she was also a shapeshifter, and took up her human form. Inuits really like shapeshifters. Did you ever realize that? What is this? I think all of them almost have been shapeshifters outside of the tornet and the adlet. While Cats already had a wife, he immediately fell in love with the human form of the she-bear and stayed with her in the forest. From their unions, the she-bear gave birth to 3 bear cubs, and the weird little family lived happily for many years. But one day, when Cats was out hunting, he came across another man from his village, who begged him to return. Since his disappearance, the village was starving, as no one there knew how to hunt or fish thanks to their reliance on cats, which is really more of a them problem than a him problem. But Cats felt guilty, so he returned to his bear wife and begged her to allow him to return to his village to teach them how to hunt and fish. The grizzly agreed, on one condition. He could return to the village, but he could have no contact with his human wife, or the bear would find out. Cats promised, and with his dick and balls on the line, the following day he made his way to the village to teach them what he could about how to survive and catch food. He succeeded in avoiding his human wife, until it was time for him to leave. As he made his way out of the village, his human wife leapt out from behind some bushes, surprising him. Cats immediately left, but the damage was done. He had broken his promise to the she-bear. Now, the she-bear knew that the encounter wasn't the fault of her husband, but she enjoyed playing jokes as well. When Cats came home, she pretended to be very angry with him, and, seeing their parents fighting, the cubs took the side of their mother and attacked Cats, killing him. Heartbroken at the death of her husband, the she-bear left the forest and climbed to the top of the tallest mountain and began to cry. She cried and cried on, and from her constant stream of tears, the rain continued to fall on Ketchikan to this day. So maybe there's 2 morals to this tale. 1, don't fuck a bear. 2, don't joke about serious stuff. It's like being that girl who tells her boyfriend she's pregnant on April Fool's Day. Just don't do it. It's stupid. Alright, this one I'm really going to make people angry with my pronunciations. The Stanol yasna, known as the people-stealing monster, do exactly what it says they do. They steal people. Described as being human-shaped, these creatures have a tail and are covered in fur except for their face. Despite not having fur there, though, they're still very odd-looking by human standards, as their nose can grow as long as a foot. Exclusively found on the Kenai Peninsula, and only during the summer months, the Stanol yasna lure people away with their animal sounds, particularly bird songs, though their imitations are not perfect. Should you follow the sounds, you may end up caught by one and put into a coma. On the other hand, if you follow the sound, you might be able to outsmart it and rescue its other victims through holy water, a sign of the cross, or a good luck song. You can kind of see where Christians got involved with this one, huh? It's not a very long story, but it's kind of funny to just think about a guy going around with a really, really long nose and fur and just being like making bird noises and kidnapping people. Maybe not children, though. Moving on. Now, before we go over the number 1 cryptid of Alaska, I'd like to give some honorable mentions. Alaska is massive. A huge area with more people going missing every year with no explanation. Another kind of final frontier for those who truly wish to live off the grid and be in a land where humans aren't at the top of the food chain. That spot's reserved for polar bears. Haha. As such, there's plenty of myths, legends, aliens, conspiracies, and more that I'll be covering in time. But for now, our honorable mentions go out to the thunderbird, which will have its own dedicated episode. These guys are spotted all around North America, so having them on a list dedicated to Alaska just didn't seem fair to the lesser-known fellas. The kalup. These evil earth spirits take the form of a black, hairless dog, minus their fuzzy little paws. They're akin to the black dogs of Britain in that they bring misfortune wherever they go, and have been known to follow travelers before attacking and killing them. These evil pups can be found quite literally all around the world, and as far as Alaska goes, I think the most terrifying thing about them is that they're hairless. In Alaska! Aren't you cold? The evil humanoid creature known as the mahaha. The mahaha is a maniacal, demon-like being described as skinny yet strong creature of ice-blue putrid color that is cold to the touch with pure white eyes and long stringy hair and a perpetual grin on its face. The creature takes pleasure in killing its victims by tickling them to death with long nails attached to their bony fingers. If an Inuit was found dead with a twisted smile on their face, it was assumed to be the work of a mahaha. Fortunately, the mahaha, while evil, is foolish and very easily tricked, with most tales of survivors being from the potential victims having fooled the mahaha, such as tricking it into leaning over a water hole for a drink, only to be pushed into the open water and swept away by the currents. To be fair, most of these could easily be chalked up to hypothermia, but I think the idea of a creepy little gremlin running around tickling people to death is much creepier. And now our number 1 Alaskan cryptid. Inuit legend has it that while walking back to your village or hunting in the bush or fishing in the sea, you may see a man or a group of men approach you. They look just like you, and you may find them more often when you are lost or injured, so a helping hand is always appreciated. These malevolent creatures should not be trusted, as they are the shape-shifting kushtaka, otter people, and you look like a perfect member to join their ranks. Despite looking and appearing like the cute-faced otters we know and love, the kushtaka are incredibly dangerous. Known for tricking sailors and hunters with cries for help that resemble a woman or a child, the kushtaka take delight in luring people out to rivers where they either tear the person into shreds or turn them into another kushtaka, where they'll never be able to be reincarnated again. In many stories, this transformation begins by a lost person being saved by the kushtaka from freezing to death. The creature would distract them by creating illusions of their friends and families, but having an otter-like twist to them. And then, before they know it, they're one of the kushtaka themselves. At this point, the kushtaka have technically lived up to their side of the bargain, as they're able to survive the brutal Alaskan cold just fine. They're not all bad. There are more than a few stories where the kushtaka have actually helped people without turning them into one of them, offering food and guidance. But the general consensus is still that they are best to be avoided unless you want to become one.
Brother,
Might be worth it for people who want that cute little fuzzy face. Furries, there you go. The kushtaka are terrified of dogs, and considering many people in Alaska have a canine companion, it's hard to really worry about the shapeshifters. I myself have 4 mutts, so I'll be fine. If you don't have a puppy dog for company, you can also ward them away with copper, or avoid the high-pitched whistle they are known to make in a pattern of low, high, low. It just may be the kushtaka. Or a serial killer. Both are likely. I hope you enjoyed learning more about some of the cryptids that Alaska has to offer. Did you learn about any new ones thanks to this video? What about some that I might have missed? I know there's a bunch of them, so let me know in the comments. I read them all for future video ideas, and to see how many other people enjoy learning about spooky stuff like myself. If you want to see what I release in the future, consider subscribing, liking this video, clicking the bell, and sharing it with others. Many of my videos are thanks to suggestions given to me, so feel free to let me know what you'd like to see covered next. If you'd like to support me in other ways, consider checking out my Patreon. Speaking of, I'd like to give a big thank you to my patrons. You guys are awesome, and I'm so thankful to have your support. With that, I'm Allie, this is Wicked Encounters, and I'll see you next time. Bye!